to air is human, but to complain, well, complaining makes many people just feel good, or does it? Most of us seem to enjoy airing our beefs. We all do it enough, but more and more people are finding that complaints may be the very thing that keeps them from being happy. Is this the solution? Here's the story to find out.
I complain about stupidity and ignorance and
time
taking things for granted.
To do things to get
and
served.
traffic.
Work, definitely work. Waiting for buses.
Too much taxes.
Government.
Gas prices too high.
Your employer. Your spouse.
Giving up complaining would be like giving up chocolate. Yeah, chocolate. It would be like giving up chocolate.
Certainly, you would go postal.
I'm Will Bowen, and I think we should have a complaint-free world. If your mind is on negative things and problem things and things you don't want, guess where you're gonna go? You're causing it to happen. You're bringing it about by focusing on it, by that being your direction and your intention. I'm a minister in Kansas City, Missouri. Back in July of 2006, I was doing a series on prosperity, in which I was inviting people to focus on what was working in their lives as opposed to what was not working in their lives. Your mind is like a steering wheel for your life. So I gave people these purple bracelets and encouraged them to, every time they catch themselves complaining, take it off one wrist and switch it to the other wrist until you ultimately go 21 days without complaining.
After you'd gone 8.
The idea behind the bracelet is every time you catch yourself complaining, you take it off one wrist and you put it on the other wrist. You go back and forth, back and forth. There's something about doing this that makes your mind really connect. Oh yes, I complained that time. And it drives it very deep. You start to become very aware of it. Awareness is the first step towards any transformation.
Sometimes it's with my closest friends that I complain about this or that, and sometimes I have a hard time finding that line of, am I just sharing my feelings with my friends, or am I griping and gritching and carrying on? But I'm seeing the difference. I think deep down inside I know the difference.
Well, even though maybe I'm guilty of not changing it every time, it's a constant reminder, because you do these things without thinking about it.
I like to say complaining is like bad breath. We notice it when it comes out of somebody else's mouth, but not when it comes out of our own. And most people complain a lot more than they think. And I myself complain 20, 30 times a day before I actually made the 21 consecutive days.
I'm Donald Perry, and it took me 8 weeks to get to where I had one complaint-free day.
Just getting through one day without complaining in the beginning was so difficult. Had no idea that I complained as much as I did until I started focusing on what was coming out of my mouth. My main complaint before I started this was I'm tired. I am tired, I am tired, I am tired. Every day. It's like a snowball effect. You get out of bed and you're cranky right away, and first thing out of your mouth is complain about, oh, I don't want to do this, and and then pretty soon everything seems to be going wrong.
Well, when I was wearing the bracelet, my boss asked me about it. Well, what's that about? And so I told him, well, I'm doing this thing with the church and Reverend Will, and then he told me, well, that's a great thing. That's a good idea. And he said, Don, when you really get going on a rant, you can be scary. That's one of the things that I have struggled with sometimes at work.
There's an element of one-upmanship in complaining. One person will complain and somebody will complain to top them and somebody else will complain to top them. It's like a competitive sport. The best example of this I've ever seen was in a routine done by Monty Python.
We used to live in this tiny old tumble-down house with great big holes in the roof.
House? You were lucky to live in a house. We used to live in one room, all 26 of us, no furniture, half the floor was missing. We're all huddled together in one corner for fear of falling.
You were lucky to have a room. We used to have to live in the corridor.
Oh, we used to dream of living in a corridor.
Like attracts like. If you are around complainers, chances are you're a complainer yourself. My daughter actually was the first kid to make it.
Just do that, pinch your left leg.
I think kids make it the 21 days faster because they just decide this is something I'm going to do and they're going to do it. And they also don't tend to have relationships that are based solely on complaining. Their relationships are based on school and activities, but a lot of adults, that's what they do, is they complain. My wife took the longest of our family, and I always joke and say that's because I did it easiest because I'm married to her. It took her longest because she's married to me.
It took me 6 months to make the 21 days. I got to day 18, I got to day 20, and I would just lose it and tell everybody who was willing to listen my story about whatever was going on, and I would start over.
That's real smart. Throw snow around horses. You'd be screaming at me. What were you thinking? Don't you know horses shy?
Now, was that a complaint?
Yeah, that was a complaint. That was definitely a complaint. Sometimes I backslide. It's rare. Once you have done this and taken the time to do it, the average person taking 4 to 8 months, you become very conscious of complaining, and you really get to where you don't do it very often. I still complain, but maybe it's 2-3 times a month instead of 20 to 30 times a day. Oftentimes the words that are a complaint and the words that are a statement of fact can be exactly the same. I can say to you that we've had snow here in Missouri every day for 3.5 weeks. Or I could say, we have had snow here in Missouri every day for 3.5 weeks. One is a statement of fact and the other is a complaint.
If you were in your car with your wife driving and you come to the stoplight, if you turn to her and say, it's not going to get any greener, let's go, then that's a complaint.
One of the most common questions I'm asked is, how can I affect change if I don't complain? I find that people who are getting things done are not great complainers. They are people too busy doing something about the challenge to be complaining about it. I think one of the greatest examples of focusing beyond the problem was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
He focused beyond the problem to a day when there was no racism, where people lived and worked and played together regardless of what they looked like. And he did it so clearly, he took all of us there with him.
And America will be a new America.
Oh, there's a pigeon sitting up on top. We were talking about it one day, about how we used to feel when we were complaining and how we feel now. And we feel so much lighter and happier and more at peace, where before the complaints kind of weighed us down. We are happier people.
We aren't pecking at each other all the time about minutia. We're really talking about what our feelings, and we don't, we stop ourselves before we say that thing that's going to piss her off all day.
Don's boss calls Don Mr. Sunshine now.
My energy is different, and people want to know what I'm doing.
I had almost every single kid. I had almost 100 kids in my school doing it.
And you know what is amazing about this? This stuff works. It really does work. When you sit down and say, this is how my life is going to be in the coming year, it works. When we started this, we handed out 250 bracelets one Sunday, but we had to buy 500 bracelets because that was the minimum. And we thought, what in the world are we going to do with those other 250 bracelets? Well, little did we know, we are up to almost 5 million bracelets we've sent out to over 80 countries around the world. Where are you guys sending to today?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Canada? Canada. Is this like the Canada table?
We are making a difference. We may not be solving world hunger with this, but we are making a difference and making the world a little bit more positive.
This movement has already so far exceeded anything that I ever would have dreamed. I see it continuing to spread and to touch people's lives all around the world.
I've been wearing this thing. I gotta say very quickly, it really does focus you on how much you complain. I was the same, you know, and now I catch myself. Well, of course, I'm flipping it off back and forth on my wrists. But I'm going to be even more annoyingly pleasant on early Sunday mornings now, Carol. No more complaints.
Knows I'm not wearing the bracelet.
Yeah. Carol, the purple body bag.
Is that a complaint?
No, that was a statement of fact.
If you want to know more about the
work, though.
If you want to know more about the movement to stop complaining, you can find their web address on our own website at cbc.ca/Sunday.